begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. So, taking off our third review of the evening is the Fall Part 2 Unbound. So, bit of a history lesson here. We actually um, covered uh, the first game way back in 2014. Um, to give you an idea of how long ago this was in terms of the show, um, we're talking the original crew era. We're talking back when Naka and Keith were still a part of the broadcast. So that's quite a while ago. It's also before we started doing reviews, before a lot of stuff.
And it's not like we were delayed. This game took a long time to come out.
Right. This game actually just took 3.5 years. Especially poignant to note, we are planning on interviewing Over the Moon Games about the Fall Part 2 on Wednesday. More details, when we do the week ahead stuff. But yeah, the Fall Part 2 plays pretty similarly to its predecessor, although if you're not familiar with the game series in general, it's about an AI called Arid, who, okay, there are going to be some spoiler warnings because
yeah, Arid is a power suit AI.
Well, there are going to be some spoilers for the Fall Part 1.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna breach that here and now because we kind of can't get around that and talk about the Fall Part 2. Because the entire conceit around the first game was Arid, was this exosuit AI that was trying to rescue the person inside the suit.
And
Jacob.
through the purpose of that, she constantly had to kind of push at the boundaries of her programming and justify things.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the game, she finds out she was completely wrong about something that's very fundamental, and she basically had a mental breakdown, and then her exosuit was recovered and she was decommissioned. But at the beginning of this game, she regains just enough mental strength and order to decide that she wants to save herself.
And more to the point, to track the user.
Who is trying to get her to shut down.
Not necessarily. That's actually Domesticon. Like, she's trapped in this decommissioning chamber, and I'm trying to think of the right words to use in terms of they're deleting her basically.
Yeah.
And through the beginning of the game, you learn that somebody is tracking her movements, identified as only the user. And Arid's goal, once her AI breaks free, she's still physically in the decommissioning chamber.
Her suit is, yeah.
Yeah.
But you break into the network of the thing, and the inside the network is basically a very sparse Metroid-like overworld where sometimes you have to fight black blobs or things that are part of the system that the user is sending at you or something. But in between, you have to possess other robots and do adventure game segments to try to figure out what's going on and how to get what you want to get done.
Yeah, so your journey is going to lead you to 3 other beings. The butler, which we got showing here, a, a being called One, and the companion. Like, not sure how much I want to talk about them because the main gameplay segments are these 3 characters and your interactions with them. The conceit is that the user is moving their signal through these constructs, and you've got to work in tandem with these other characters in order to find out more information about where the user is. And you got to do.
It's hard because, for example, the butler neither knows nor cares where the building he is the butler in is located.
Well, yeah. To use the butler as an example, since he's on screen right now, he is actually, first of all, not the butler. He is the AI of the entire house, and that actually does matter. Won't go into more detail because that's actually kind of a spoiler on certain things.
But yeah,
he's
when you're in a body, you kind of have to deal with what that body and mind are doing. Yeah. So, like when you're in the butler, you kind of have to cope with his habits and schedule and stuff.
His routine.
Yeah.
He is all about his routine. Like, he is an AI that is serving long dead masters, and because he's a robot, he's still doing that.
Yeah, the fact that they're dead is no excuse for him to stop working.
Yeah, it's like that's not in his parameters, and your goal as Arid is to get him to do what you want, let's say, within the confines of those parameters. And that plays out through very point-and-click adventure style methodologies. You'll probably see some of that in the footage here. Like, worth noting, we did get a guide with this game, so stuck.
The interface is kind of weird. You have to hit the left trigger or one of the mouse clicks to engage search mode and then look at things and then click and then press the button to interact with the things.
Well,
but
yeah.
When you interact with them, you can either try to interact with them or try to use an inventory item on them.
Yeah, so here's the thing. The interface is pretty much the same as it was from the first game. And that's a bad thing, because the interface was always pretty clunky, all things considered.
Yeah, there's not much reason why this couldn't be point and click or something, or just always have search mode on.
Well, that's because this isn't an actual point and click adventure game. It's in the neighborhood, but it decided it wanted to be an action platformer. And yeah, as
the action takes place almost entirely in the network space.
Almost, but not quite, because in one segment there are combat sequences that are very rhythmic and can be frustrating at points.
Well, all of the combat sequences are frustrating to me because the jump button is mapped weird. It's mapped to the right face button.
Yeah, this was frustrating for different reasons, because you didn't have to jump. You had to hit things in time. With
yeah, that sounds like a pain.
Yeah, it's like like I said, it's very rhythmic combat, and if you miss, you get stunned for a bit, and it can take a bit to get through one of those segments. But So the Metroidvania elements, going back to those, just don't work. Like, Over the Moon's probably going to be listening to this review. Sorry, guys. This these segments were pretty much the definition of tacked on. Like, they are the space that fills in between the segments of the three robots.
Yeah, and like I said, it looks like like a combination of Metroid with like a really, really minimal.
Mm-hmm.
Like the aesthetic is super bland and appley.
Yeah.
You know, like stark white and bluish lighting. And then it's just, oh no, and there are blue doors that I can shoot to open, and then there are red doors that I have to shoot with something else to get them to open. And sometimes there are enemies.
I don't think I ever got the thing to open up the red doors. I got things to open up the thing to open up the white doors. Yeah, it does the most functionatory notes to Metroidvania.
Yeah, and then sometimes there are battles where stuff appears and you have to avoid its attacks and then shoot it a couple times using your lock-on thing. And you can only shoot like 5 times before you have to recharge your energy, like your stamina recharges. It recharges pretty fast, so that was never really an issue, because especially since none of the normal enemies seem to take more than 3 or 4 hits to kill. So,
well, here's the thing: that there are things that you get that will take more energy.
Yeah, no, sure.
Just say, did Petty Fan stop playing?
I was trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do next.
Like, just stop.
The next you got the next cycle, you have to try to get him to clean up the thing, and you have to get scissors from the bathroom or something.
What thing? The
mess you made the first time.
Oh.
You have to look at the stain.
Oh.
On the floor, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry.
That's the that's the general basis of what the Fall is. The Fall Part 2 is. It's like it is a much longer game than the first one. Ogre just messaged us. Like, take care of that. Sorry, live recording. Like, anyway, getting back to the Fall Part 2. It's a much bigger game than the first one. This is probably why it took about 3 years to go. If you play the first one, it's probably going to run you about 3-4 hours. This game ran me about 13.
And that's with a guide.
Took me about 9.
Like, it's going to run you a lot longer. This is a much bigger game. Truth be told, it's not a much better game. Like, I'd say that the new stuff is the highlights. The robot segments.
Yeah, the atmosphere of those, the acting, I actually really liked in the Butler segment, especially.
Yeah, I'm like,
where you have to deal with his butler. He's very polite and proper, and if you press him, his voice gets just a little bit dangerous sounding.
like you'd probably like one and the companion as well.
Yeah, I didn't get that far, but I suspect I would like those. The acting and stuff just between Arid, who is just kind of snarky and very mission oriented, and then dealing with all of these other AIs that just do not want to play.
Yeah, I liked all 3 of the characters as well. They all had their own issues, you could say.
Your sidearm. Ah, yes, it is kind of dark. Goes to grab lamp.
But like the stuff retained from the first game still feels like stuff from the first game with not much improvement. And it's a much bigger game, but it's a much flabbier game.
Yeah, there is a mode called casual mode that says that it like decreases the combat and stuff.
I would
or makes the
recommend
combat
that.
easier. So
Hmm.
yeah, that might actually be a good idea because that's not the strong part of this game.
No,
It is not.
the combat exists, and that's about all I can say about it.
It's not
Yeah.
terrible. It's just, really rudimentary.
Hmm. You know, I mean, it's padding.
Hmm.
You know, there's no getting around it. It's padding, pure and simple, because um, nothing important happens in those segments, really.
Well, they usually
Yeah.
happen for important reasons.
Right.
Like the first time is when well, not the first time. The first time is just when you're in the internet. But like when you really press the butler, you have to fight some things because his system backlashes against you. But like the fights themselves are just really basic. Jump and shoot at it a couple times. Then when the next one spawns, jump and shoot at it a couple times.
Hmm.
Hmm.
In terms of graphics, I'll note it's a Unity game, like the previous one was. Um, I'm not sure if the specs have increased all that much since the first. Um, it shouldn't be that much more since uh, it's a 2D platform. It looks very clean, very um, sterile.
Yeah, the graphics aren't
Yeah.
like amazingly detailed, but they uh,
Mhm.
are very atmospheric. Like they get
Yeah.
across the atmosphere that they're trying to. And it kind of
Hmm.
makes sense that things don't look quite right because you're a computer program seeing things through various different mechanical vi- vi- viewpoints.
Um, Also worth noting, this game has come. It's available for all major platforms, but we all um, we play the PC versions of things unless otherwise noted. So uh, one of the downsides of that is we can't do comparisons. Like I could not tell you if the Switch version ran, significantly worse than the other versions or anything like that. Um, all I can say is, in terms of performance, I didn't have any problems with running the Fall Part 2.
Yeah, and this one is fairly visually scalable. If I recall correctly, it has options for like
Right. Huh. Odd that it says apparently the minimum requirements for memory is 8 gigs.
Yeah. Kind of surprising too.
Like,
Wouldn't think that. I would imagine more like 4.
but also worth noting is the use of colors. Um,
yeah, when color is used, it's usually important.
Hmm.
how do I say this? Color is more than that. Color is perspective. Um,
Mm.
that will make sense if you've played through the game or through a great deal of the game.
Hmm.
It's like, I know. Twilight, How far did you get in the game?
I beat it earlier today. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it plays a large part later on. Color does.
Yeah, it's like, oh, good. Someone else beat this as well.
Sorry, I wanted to, but I started having time to play things really late this week.
Well, no, we were off for 2 weeks.
I was pretty busy in those weeks too, but I know what you mean. I probably should have started earlier.
It's just what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Let's see. The music, it fits the. Um, Once again, a lot of the music is tied into each character. Like, for example, the butler here, you've got classical piano playing.
Which
Like,
is possibly diegetic.
indeed. Um, it's like, can't say too much about the music because that actually kind of ties into one of the characters.
Hmm.
but yeah, it's like everything here is serving a purpose for furthering the narrative, even if it doesn't look it at first glance. It's very meticulous in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really well put together, even if it doesn't look particularly breathtaking. You know?
Mm-hmm. Right. So pricing, uh, bit of an odd duck in terms of pricing because the game, the Fall 2 itself, is clocking in at $16.99.
Which is an odd price.
Yes, like, and mind you, that's its actual price. There's no discount here, but there's also the fall bundle, which, yeah, uh, would be the way.
It includes the first game, and it is $16.99.
It basically includes the first game for free.
Right.
You know, not a surprise. You know, probably wanted you to get caught up if you don't want to do the recap. But anyway, $16.99. Yeah, I would say that is a fair price for this particular game. Honestly, it's a better price than $9.99 for the Fall 1.
Yeah.
The Fall 1 was just honestly too short to justify for $10. Good game, but it ended quick. The Fall Part 2 is going to take you longer. That I can assure you. How much longer will depend on if you're willing to use a guide or not, because
yeah, some of the puzzles are a little bit obtuse.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's not an actual point-and-click adventure game, but it is a hybrid of one. It's definitely got not just some of the interface of that, but it's got some of the tropes, good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
So beware on that end. Right, so final thoughts on the Fall 2.
I really enjoyed it, and if I have time, I might try to play it some more, because I did not get as far as I wanted to.
I enjoyed the story and the themes of it. It's not something you see very often, especially with the way it was done overall. And,
yeah, it would be nice if the combat mode even had button mapping, because if I could put the jump button on something else, then maybe it would be better.
I'm sadly, I can't pontificate on my full thoughts on the Fall 2 because that would require going into massive spoilers.
Same here. Yeah, it's pretty hard to speak on the story satisfyingly.
I will say in that regard, it definitely touches upon very trodden paths of sci-fi AI.
Mm-hmm.
I'm what they do with it is interesting, although
yeah.
I think I'm not a big fan of the direction they left things at the end there, because honestly that felt a bit too typical
Yeah.
of how these kind of stories kind of unfold. I guess in terms of the ending, all I can say is it does leave things, because here's the thing: the Fall has always been planned as a trilogy of games. I'm recalling, I think that came up in our old interview way back when. And we'll get more insight on this on Wednesday, but hopefully it doesn't take another 3 years to get the Fall Part 3. As far as the Fall Part 2 goes, yeah, definitely pick it up. Pick up the bundle with the Fall Part 1.
I mean, unless you already have that.
Right. And if you don't want to play the Fall Part 1, you don't have to. It does the recap thing.
Oh yeah, and I don't recommend using a mouse for the keyboard and mouse for this game. I was having
Yeah.
serious trouble, even with the sensitivity turned up, getting the searchy cursor to go like to the top and to the bottom. Like at the very beginning of the game, you need to search for something that's like right above your head, and I didn't even notice it was there because I couldn't get the flashlight high enough.
Mm-hmm.
I did not have that problem with the controller.
Gonna take a bit of a break. Here's the thing.
Dropped
I
for a
don't
second
know
there,
exactly.
Adam.
Let me finish. I don't know exactly how long this particular break is going to be because here's the thing. Ogre has been delayed for reasons unknown. He's home, but he's still doing things. Want to see if we can't grab him and get him here for our review of Dragon Ball Fighters.
Because you might have noticed this, but he likes Dragon Ball.
Yeah. I'm like, it won't be too long because at the end of the day, I kind of want to get this review done, today.
Mm-hmm.
And, until such time, I wish you good games.